America's national parks are breathtaking, but beyond the beauty lies a world of mystery. Strange encounters and unexplained events leave visitors with more than memories, some leave with questions. There are 429 national park sites, with 63 of those being set aside as official national parks. These parks encompass over 84 million acres of land. At national parks, people witness breathtaking views, historical sites, wildlife, and famous geological formations. Unfortunately, within the beauty of these places, there is still some strangeness. People go missing or are murdered, strange paranormal things happen all the time, and there are even reports of feral people that crop up from time to time. To be fair, national parks are not the safest places you could spend your time. Hazardous terrain, wildlife, environmental factors, and even just getting lost are all things one could possibly encounter. But how often are these strange things actually happening? Today, we're going to dive into that very question. I'm Forrest Young, and this is There's been a lot of disappearances in national parks, and its numbers ranging in the thousands, which is not entirely surprising. As stated before, there is over 84 million acres of land that these parks and sites sit on. In this section, we'll be looking into the files that we have on a few famous missing persons cases and some murders. Trinity Lynn Gibson, a 16-year-old who vanished on October 8, 1976. This case continues to confound and captivate the investigators and true crime enthusiasts who have looked into it. On that autumn day, Trinity was part of a field trip organized by Bearden High School in Knoxville, Tennessee. Approximately 40 students were taken to explore the dense trails around Clingman's Dome, the highest point in the park. The atmosphere was casual, with students breaking into smaller groups as they meandered through the rugged terrain. Trinity, described as a bright and independent young woman, started the hike alongside her peers, including Robert Simpson, a fellow student with whom she was known to be friendly. Their teacher, Mr. Dunlap, oversaw the group's activities as the students moved through the park. Eyewitness accounts indicate that Trinity was last seen straying off the trail, seemingly drawn by something in the underbrush. Whether it was a flash of movement, an animal, or something else remains unknown. This split-second decision marked the beginning of an enduring mystery. Within moments, Trinity disappeared from sight. The response was immediate and massive. Park rangers, volunteers, search dogs, and helicopters were deployed to scour the thickly wooded landscape. Despite exhaustive efforts over several days, no trace of Trinity was found. No clothes, no belongings, or other indicators of her whereabouts. The terrain, notorious for its rapidly changing weather and dense underbrush, posed a significant challenge. The search teams battled through fog, rain, and steep inclines, all while being aware that the unforgiving environment could easily disorient anyone. Speculation about Trinity's disappearance runs the gamut. One prominent theory suggests that she just became very disoriented and strayed off the trail and wandered way deeper into the forest than anyone thought she would, and she unfortunately succumbed to the elements. The area's topography kind of supports this theory because there's just so many places you can get lost and never be seen again there. The Smokies are known for their dense vegetation and steep drops that can be nearly impossible to navigate or escape once trapped. If Trinity became disoriented, it's conceivable she may have succumbed to exposure or injury without ever being located. Yet, some believe that foul play can't be ruled out. The sheer swiftness with which she disappeared, coupled with the presence of other people on the trail, raises several unsettling questions. Did Trinity encounter someone who meant her harm? One theory posits that Trinity may have been abducted by someone familiar with the trails, or even a fellow hiker. Some classmates reported seeing other park visitors who seemed out of place or suspicious, although no solid leads ever came from these observations. Another angle even considers what if someone in her hiking group was involved with this. This theory, while chilling, is fueled by the idea that any minor altercation or misunderstanding on such an isolated trail could escalate unexpectedly. Trinity's connection with Robert Simpson has drawn attention, though no direct evidence implicates him or any of her peers. Trinity had a large, thick Stanley comb that she always carried. Both Trinity and her sister had one, and it was designed especially for long hair. Trinity was never without her comb. After she disappeared, The comb was found on the dash of Robert Simpson's car, and he had been using it to comb his hair. Robert Gibson had seen it, and when questioned, Simpson said that Trini had given the comb to him to keep for her. While suspicious without concrete proof, Simpson's involvement remains purely speculative. There are also those who point to strange occurrences that happened in the area. The Smoky Mountains have long been associated with unexplained disappearances and eerie phenomena. Some investigators and enthusiasts have explored whether Trini's case could be a part of a larger pattern of vanishings linked to unknown or even paranormal causes. While this theory stretches in the realm of fantastical, it underscores how unsettling the case remains. Adding to the intrigue are conflicting reports and curious details noted in the initial investigation. Witnesses later mentioned seeing Trini veer slightly off the trail, but none could agree on what prompted this action. Some accounts referenced strange activity or individuals who seemed out of place during the hike. Yet, despite exhaustive interviews and leads, nothing conclusive ever emerged. There are also theories that Trini ran away with someone. Trini's purse, bank book, makeup, clothing, and cash at home were all left behind. She had over $1,000 in her bank account, which went untouched. Search dogs led investigators to a local road. This gave a little credibility to the theory that she had been abducted, but would someone involved with foul play wait in the bushes on a steep slope away from the trail with so many hikers around? Some accounts tell of cigarettes and a beer can found near the road, where the sniffer dog had come to a halt. Unfortunately, this case remains unsolved, and as time goes on, most likely will never be solved. As most of these cases will be, it is scary to think that, especially since it was so long ago, there's definitely a possibility that we'll never know what happened. It's very likely. My personal theory is that she was abducted. I feel like the dogs coming upon the road, ending there and finding the beer can and cigarettes on the side, makes it seem like she may have, yes, just wandered off the trail and was doing her own thing, and then got to the road and someone saw her by the road and took her. But yeah, that's what I feel like. I don't think anyone else was involved. It is weird that her friend ended up with her comb, but that is more likely a coincidence because he was back on the bus with everyone else at the very end. I've also read some theories that there was a place, kind of like a visitor center thing, that was closed, and they didn't really investigate that too much. So some people think that someone did take her, went to the visitor center, and waited while the search kind of died out, and then took her from there. So there's always that. In 1966, two women, 26-year-old Juliana Bender and 24-year-old Lolly Winnan, were found dead in a secluded area in the Shenandoah National Park. Both had violently been attacked and left in a remote location, shocking not only their families but the entire country. The brutality of the crimes was unimaginable, and for years the killer's identity was a mystery. Julie and Lolly had gone to the Shenandoah National Park on May 19th on a camping trip. They were due back by the 28th of that month. However, Williams was reported missing on May 31st after a roommate phoned Williams' father to inform him she hadn't yet returned from her trip. After a day of searching, the bodies of the two women were found at a creekside campsite just off the Appalachian Trail. The scene was near milepost 42 along Skyline Drive, less than half a mile from the Skyland Resort, a popular tourist locale and close to the drive. The women were found bound and gagged with their throats slit. After the bodies were discovered, the investigation was intense. The FBI and local law enforcement scoured the area, speaking with witnesses and investigating the backgrounds of the victims as well. They learned that Julie and Lolly had been avid hikers and were camping in the park where the attack occurred. Early on, police received several tips from hikers who had been in the park around the same time, but none could provide solid leads. At one point, investigators even explored possible links to other unsolved crimes in the area, as the nature of the attack mirrored similar incidents. However, without a viable lead or a suspect coming up, the case started to go cold. Then, in 2024, the FBI announced a breakthrough. Using DNA evidence collected from the crime scene, investigators were able to link the murders to a man named Walter Leo Jackson. His DNA matched that found on victims' belongings. Jackson had been known to law enforcement due to previous crimes, but his connection to the Shenandoah murders had never been established until DNA finally provided the match. While the connection was made, Jackson had died in 2018, which makes the conclusion somewhat bitter because he never had to answer for his crimes. There is solace, however, because the families of the victims were given long-awaited answers after 26 years of heartache. And this case is a lot nicer because while it took a long time to get justice, they were able to find out who did it and know that that person was never going to be out with a chance to do something like this ever again. In June 1969, a 6-year-old Dennis Martin set off on a camping trip with his family. The trip was to take them to the Great Smoky Mountains. What began as a joyful camping experience slowly devolved into a sad and scary event for his whole family and the country at large. On that fateful day, Dennis and his brother, along with a friend, decided to play a game of hide and seek. As they played, Dennis wandered off to hide. When the other children returned to the camp, Dennis was nowhere to be found. His family immediately began searching the area, calling his name, but there was no answer. What followed was a massive search effort involving over 1,400 volunteers, search dogs, and helicopters. The National Park Service coordinated the search, which lasted for days, combing through thick forests and steep ridges. Despite the extensive resources dedicated to finding Dennis, no trace of the young boy was discovered. There were no footprints, no sign of struggle, not even the smallest piece of his clothing. The only clue was a scent trail, which seemed to lead nowhere. The investigations into Dennis's disappearance took several turns. Initial theories suggested that Dennis might have just become lost in the dense woods. Others speculated that he might have been taken by a stranger, possibly someone who had been in the area around the time of the disappearance. A number of witnesses claimed to have seen a man in the area who appeared out of place, though no evidence is ever found to support these claims. In the following weeks, the investigation intensified. The FBI became involved and were looking for evidence of foul play or kidnapping, but no leads were coming up for them. Over time, the theory that Dennis had wandered off became less likely, and the possibility of something more sinister was considered. Yet despite dozens of theories and tips, the case went cold. There are 3 main theories regarding what happened to Dennis Martin. The first theory is that he became lost in the woods and succumbed to the elements or another cause. Park officials considered this to be most likely explanation, suggesting that he may have perished shortly after disappearing. The second theory is that Dennis was attacked by a bear or a possible feral pig, which carried him away. The third theory, which Dennis's father supported, is that Dennis was abducted. One possible clue came from a tourist named Harold Key, who along with his family heard a disturbing scream in the afternoon. Soon after, they saw a rough-looking man carrying what appeared to be clothing running on a nearby trail. However, investigators found no solid evidence connecting the sighting to Dennis, especially since it occurred nearly 5 miles away from where he disappeared. Unfortunately, none of these theories can be proven, and Dennis's case remains unsolved and is one of the most harrowing unsolved cases in the Great Smoky Mountains. Unfortunately, this is a case where I think he was 6 years old, getting lost in one of the densely wooded areas of the United States. I think he just got lost, and he was just not found, unfortunately. Gabrielle Petito grew up in Blue Point, New York, and had a passion of art, yoga, and travel. After graduating high school, she worked in North Carolina, and later in Florida, where she met Brian Laundrie. In 2020, the couple began a cross-country road trip, documenting their travels on social media. In December 2020, Petito purchased a 2012 Ford Transit Connect van, converted into a camper, in which the couple would take their next cross-country trip. To save money for the trip, she began working 50-hour weeks at Taco Bell and as a nutritionist, while Laundrie took a job at an organic juice bar. Petito documented her life and travels on social media sites such as YouTube and Instagram. On June 17, 2021, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie returned to her hometown of Blue Point, New York, for her brother's graduation. A few weeks later, on July 2nd, they began the road trip in their Ford Transit Connect van, visiting national parks and landmarks across the country. However, on August 12th, their journey took a troubling turn. A witness reported a domestic disturbance outside of a store in Moab, Utah. The police soon stopped the couple, finding Gabby visibly upset. She initially downplayed the situation, explaining her frustration with work and the stress of the trip. However, after being pressed by the officer, Gabby admitted that Brian had grabbed her face during the altercation. Both Gabby and Brian declined to press charges on one another. The police, concluding that it was just a mental breakdown and not domestic violence, decided that the best course of action was to separate the couple for the night. Gabby stayed in the van and Brian went to stay the night at a motel. This action by the police actually led to later investigations internally in the police department, basically looking into how they handled that situation. On August 17th, Brian Laundrie flew back to Florida from Salt Lake City, leaving Gabby behind. He claimed it was to retrieve some items and close a storage unit, with plans to rejoin her. He returned on August 23rd. Gabby's mother spoke to her on August 25th, when Gabby mentioned that they were traveling to the Grand Teton and Yellowstone. Later that day, Gabby posted her final Instagram photos. 2 days later, on August 27th, CCTV footage captured the couple at a Whole Foods store in Jackson, Wyoming, before they drove off. This would be the last time Gabby was seen alive. On August 27th, 2021, a witness reported seeing Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie at a restaurant in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The witness described Brian as aggressive during an argument with the staff, and later saw Gabby return to apologize, visibly upset. On August 29th, a couple picked up Laundrie, who appeared disoriented and offered $200 for the ride despite claiming he had been camping for days. He was dropped off near Jackson Lake Dam. Later that day, another witness gave him a ride back to the Spread Creek camping area. Gabby's mother became concerned when she received a strange text from her daughter's phone on August 27th, followed by another one on August 30th, which seemed very out of character, and Gabby's mother wasn't even sure she sent them. Brian Laundrie's actions became even more suspicious. On August 29th, he called his mother and later told his father Gabby's gone, and that he might need a lawyer. 2 days later, he returned to his parents' home alone. By September 6th, Brian and his parents went camping in Florida, even as the search for Gabby intensified. The disappearance of Gabby Petito and subsequent search for Brian Laundrie made headlines across the country in the fall of 2021. On September 11th, after not hearing from her daughter for weeks, Gabby's mother, Nicole Schmidt, filed a missing persons report. As the investigation unfolded, Laundrie was named a person of interest. His family, however, remained silent, choosing to consult their lawyer instead of cooperating with authorities. Just days later, Laundrie's whereabouts became a mystery as well. On September 17th, his parents reported him missing, claiming they hadn't seen him since September 13th. By this point, authorities had confirmed the discovery of Gabby's remains at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area in Wyoming. The coroner's report later revealed that her death was homicide, caused by blunt force trauma to the head and neck, as well as manual strangulation. The evidence pointed to her being killed 3 or 4 weeks prior to the discovery of her body. As the investigation continued, the FBI issued an arrest warrant for Laundrie on September 23rd, accusing him of using Gabby's debit card to withdraw over $1,000 between August 30th and September 1st. This development only deepened the suspicion surrounding him, with authorities actively searching for Laundrie in Florida. On October 5th, Laundrie's sister urged him to turn himself in during an emotional interview with ABC News, but it wasn't until October 20th that his skeletal remains were discovered in the Mykahatchee Creek Environmental Park, an area that had recently been submerged due to flooding. The discovery of Laundrie's remains sparked further questions, as an autopsy could not determine the cause of death. But on November 23rd, after thorough forensic analysis, it was concluded that Laundrie died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. On January 21st, 2022, the FBI revealed that a notebook was found near Brian Laundrie's remains. It contained an entry where Brian confessed to killing Gabby Petito. He claimed that after Petito fell and injured herself, he ended her life, believing it was a mercy. He also admitted to deceiving others by sending texts pretending she was alive. However, experts questioned this account, saying that he was basically just trying to cover up for himself and justify his actions. The FBI officially held Laundrie responsible for the murder and closed the case in January 2022. The Gabby Petito case became a massive social media phenomenon, with widespread attention on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. People from all over the world followed her story, sharing updates, theories, and information. The public's interest grew as more details emerged about her travels and the mysterious circumstances of her disappearance. Online sleuths analyzed the couple's social media accounts, dissecting every post and interaction, which contributed to the case's viral nature. The hashtag #FindGabbyPetito trended globally. This was another case where It was tragic. It felt like one of those things where there was several chances, it felt like, where it could have been avoided, especially the Moab situation where the police just split them up for the night. The Netflix documentary that covers this was pretty good and informative, and it shows that his parents were not good people either. So yeah, I recommend checking that one out. Glenn Rollin Hyde, born December 9th, 1898, was a farmer from Twin Falls, Idaho. Bessie Louise Haley, born December 29th, 1905, was a divorcee from Parksburg, West Virginia. The couple met in 1927 aboard a passenger ship bound for Los Angeles and married on April 10th, 1928, shortly after Bessie's divorce was finalized. Glenn Hyde had some experience with river running from a 1926 trip down Idaho's Salmon and Snake Rivers. His wife Bessie, however, was a novice. In October 1928, they journeyed to Green River, Utah, where Glenn built a 20-foot wooden boat. On October 20th, they began their honeymoon adventure, traveling down the Green and Colorado River. Glenn's goal was to set a speed record through the Grand Canyon, while also making Bessie the first documented woman to navigate it. They were last seen on Sunday, November 18th, 1928, when they boated away downriver below Hermit Rapid. The couple had hiked to Bright Angel Trail out of the canyon to resupply a few days earlier. At the south rim, they approached the photographer Emery Kolb at his studio and home on the canyon rim, where they were photographed before returning down into the canyon. A search for the couple began when they were overdue in December 1928. Their boat was found on December 19th. Intact and adrift, but there was no sign of the couple. In Bessie's journal, she mentioned that they had successfully navigated the challenging 231-mile rapid. The last known entry suggests they had made camp at Diamond Creek, River Mile 226. The camera recovered from the boat showed their last photo near River Mile 165. Evidence suggested that they reached Diamond Creek, but historian Otis R. Marston theorized they were swept from the boat after hitting submerged rocks and dangerous rapids. While many investigators just claim that they were swept from the boat and ended up drowning at some point during this trip, several other theories emerged. An elderly woman on the commercial Grand Canyon rafting trip in 1971 announced to the other rafters that she was Bessie Hyde, and that she had stabbed her abusive husband to death and escaped the Grand Canyon on her own. This was unlike what was known of Glenn Hyde, and the woman later recanted this story. A theory that emerged surrounding the disappearance of Glenn and Bessie Hyde suggested that Glenn's alleged abusive tendencies may have escalated in the harsh conditions of the Grand Canyon, leading to Bessie killing him and escaping the canyon to start a new life. Proponents of this theory speculated that Bessie, tired of Glenn's mistreatment, may have taken drastic actions. This theory gained further attention when a marriage certificate of Glenn and Bessie Hyde was found in the home of a woman named Georgia Clark, a woman whose real name ended up being Bessie DeRoss. Friends of Clark were intrigued by this find, saying that she had kind of kept a low profile through her life and that she had changed her name several times. However, Colorado River historian Brad Dimmock thoroughly examined the evidence, including photographs, and concluded that Clark and Bessie Hyde were not the same person. Despite the intriguing coincidences, Dimmock's research debunked the theory that Bessie Hyde had assumed a new identity as Georgia Clark. Unfortunately, since this case is extremely old, it is unlikely that we will ever find out what became of Glenn and Bessie Hyde, whether they died tragically or had something more sinister occur. Even though for me, if a woman was found to have changed her name several times and one of the names was Bessie and she had a marriage certificate of two people she didn't know, right? It would make sense that that might be the same person? I don't know. I feel like they dismissed that too quick. I don't know. That's just me. With the vast uninhabited areas of our national parks, there's always a chance for the unexplainable, the extraordinary, the paranormal, cryptids, things like that could be residing within the parks. Our first story starts with Fresno, California, a city known for its sunny landscapes and agriculture than cryptids. Yet, in 2007, that all changed. A grainy surveillance photo captured by a local resident, Jose, depicted two peculiar figures gliding across his front yard. These entities, with their long and slender legs and tiny torsos, moved in a way that defied explanation. The footage, which quickly spread across the internet, gave rise to the phenomenon we now know as the Fresno Nightcrawler. What sets the Fresno Nightcrawler apart from other cryptids is its surreal appearance. Described as standing between 1 and 4 feet tall, with no discernible arms or facial features, the Nightcrawler seems more alien than animal. Some believe it's a spirit connected to the local Native American folklore, where tales of protected beings resembling these forms exist. Others think it could be an entirely unknown species, adapted to moving gracefully across marshy or wooded terrains. To this day, the Nightcrawler has only been spotted a handful of times, with the only other sighting being reported in Yosemite National Park, captured on a similar surveillance camera. Despite the viral nature of these sightings, most people claim that the Fresno Nightcrawler is nothing more than a hoax. Some suggest that the videos are manipulated footage, or perhaps a puppet on string, designed to deceive. However, there is no definitive proof to debunk the videos at this point in time. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in 1863, remains one of the most bloodiest and significant battles in American history. With over 50,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing, the town of Gettysburg became an enduring symbol of sacrifice and loss. It is no surprise the stories of hauntings and ghostly encounters have emerged from the historic site, cementing its reputation as one of the most haunted locations in America. One of the most famous ghost stories associated with Gettysburg is that of phantom soldiers seen marching across the battlefield. Visitors and locals alike reported witnessing shadowy figures clad in Civil War-era uniforms moving silently in formations before disappearing into thin air. These apparitions are said to be so vivid that some spectators initially mistake them for reenactors, only to realize that no one was present. The Gettysburg College, which served as a field hospital during the battle, is another hotspot for paranormal activity. Staff and students have reported strange occurrences such as disembodied voices, footsteps echoing down empty hallways, and ghostly figures appearing in the windows. One well-known tale involves the college's elevator, which is said to transport unsuspecting passengers to a basement that once housed a morgue. Witnesses claim to have seen horrific scenes of wounded and dying soldiers when the elevator doors open, only for the vision to vanish moments later. Other chilling encounters include the spirit of Jenny Wade, the only civilian killed during the battle. Jenny's house has become a focal point for ghostly activity, with visitors reporting cold spots, mysterious knocks, and even faint cries. Park rangers and tourists have also reported hearing gunshots, cannon fire, and cries of soldiers on the battlefield as they do night tours. These auditory apparitions are often accompanied by an eerie fog that settles over the field, heightening the sense of supernatural presence. Some believe these sounds are echoes from the past, moments forever imprinted on the landscape due to the immense trauma experienced during these 3 days of battle. The skunk ape, often called the Bigfoot of the South, is a creature of folklore said to inhabit the swamps of southeastern United States, particularly in Florida. This elusive primate-like being is typically described as being 5 to 7 feet tall, covered in hair, and emitting a foul odor that gives it its name. Reports of sightings date back to the 1960s, though local legends suggest the tales of the skunk ape have been passed down through generations. Eyewitness accounts of the skunk ape share common themes. Encounters often occur in remote marshy areas, and the creature is usually seen for just a fleeting moment before vanishing. Many who claim to have seen the skunk ape describe its movements as eerily swift and silent despite its size. Some hunters and campers have reported finding large human-like footprints in the mud, accompanied by an unbearable stench that lingers long after the creature has disappeared. One of the most famous sightings occurred in the 1970s, when the creature was allegedly photographed by a resident of Sarasota County, known as the Mayaka skunk ape photo. These images sparked a surge of interest in the legend and remain a source of debate among cryptozoologists and skeptics. While some believe that the photos offer a compelling evidence, others argue that they are simply a hoax or a misidentification of a known animal. The skunk ape has also been tied to Native American folklore. Tribes like the Seminole have stories of a creature called the Esti Kapakaki, or Tall Man, which shares striking similarities to the modern-day descriptions of the skunk ape. For this final section, we're going to examine this map that made its rounds on social media. The map depicts missing persons cases and America's cave system. It's fascinating to see that there could be a correlation between the two, because crazy enough, people find caves all the time that are like undocumented, unfound, unexplored, and they don't tell anyone about it, and then they go and explore it themselves and they get lost and die. Can't make their way out of it for whatever reason. Now, there's no telling how these populations of feral people could have gotten started, but there are just been reports of people seeing other people not wearing clothes and running around in the woods. I mean, they could be crazy drug addicts, but these people don't seem like normal people. They don't seem like they have been around civilization ever. And that leads to another theory of people going missing in all these national parks because they're so undeveloped. Could it be these feral people who live in these places taking people? While these theories are speculative, they highlight the unease that you feel when you start researching stuff like this, things that are happening in our national parks. With their vast and sprawling cave system and dense forest, these parks remain enigmatic places, ripe for myth and speculation. Whether these stories of feral humans and hidden communities are based on real encounters, or simply the result of fear and imagination, the possibility that something more sinister is lurking in the caves cannot be dismissed. Alright guys, that's it for our deep dive into the mysterious happenings in our national park. From people vanishing into thin air to evasive cryptids and other paranormal happenings, these places unfortunately aren't just about their beautiful views. They have stories that make you wonder what is fact and what is fiction. And what do you think? Is there actually strange occurrences going on out there, or is it all just a coincidence? Thanks for hanging out with me today on The Files. If you enjoyed this, just make sure to follow along with the show. Show your friends. And hey, if you got your own spooky stories or theories, make sure to comment them down below and let us know what you think. We wanna see what you think. Oh, I also wanted to say, if you don't like watching these videos, we're gonna be posting them on Spotify as well. So make sure to check us out on there. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and make sure to pack an extra flashlight when you head into the great outdoors. See you soon.